Back to overtime, where we're going to record this, and it's going to be great fun on social media after we get these predictions. The ones that are right have bragging rights. The ones that weren't will probably hear from me on Twitter making fun of them. Let's start out, Representative Wynn, with you. The treasurer's race, statewide elections. Democrats, Pat Contreras was on last week, hard-charging young guy, Judy Baker, knows Democrat politics. Who wins?
I think Judy Baker.
Yeah. Dave Buggers, who wins?
Baker.
JB?
Pat's a friend, so I'm going with Pat.
Pat?
You know, I think Pat's run a really strong grassroots campaign. I think he's got a bright future, but I think in the end, Judy Baker wins out.
I'll throw you one out. I think Judy Baker's the favorite. I think Pat could win.
Yeah.
But I don't think you've heard the last of Pat Contreras either way. I think he's a guy that, if you're a Democrat looking for someone to run for office and recruit and keep involved, I think he may have been the underlying star on the Democrat side this
Especially
campaign cycle.
someone who worked for Hillary Clinton. That's a very good credential to run statewide Missouri, working for Hillary Clinton.
You know what? It may not be a statewide race. The guy works hard, very articulate. I've been impressed with him. Secretary of State's debate, David Turner. You've got Robin Smith waiting for Jay Ashcroft and Will Krause. Who wins?
You know, that's an interesting race. I think in the end, Jay Ashcroft's name ID is probably too much to overcome, and he wins.
JB, what do you think?
You know, I wonder in a year where you're going to have high Democratic turnout, whether or not you're going to see a Democratic sweep of
Who wins the primary, though?
You know, I think Robin has a significant name ID in the St. Louis area, but I think I agree with David.
So tell us something about Robin Smith.
Besides the fact that, you know, she was a news reporter.
Yeah. What's she like?
Yeah, I don't know her personally. But I know that she's a serious person. I know that she does her homework. She's always prepared. And I think, you know, and I'm going to harp on this theme, I think she's a civil individual. And I think that she's somebody that not only can you work with her, but I don't think you're going to be afraid to approach her. And I think there's somebody that she'll always pick up the phone call, she'll always call you back, she'll always follow up, she's responsive. But that doesn't mean that that's good in politics,
sure.
Right? You got to connect.
David Worley, you ran a campaign against Jay Ashcroft before. Who wins this race?
I think Jay Ashcroft does. I like Will Krause. I think that it's a tough race for Will. I think if he could have overperformed in fundraising and had $3 or $4 million, he might have been able to take Jay out, but I don't think he can, and so I give it to Jay. And I think in the general election that in Missouri there may be a landslide elsewhere, but I think we're going to see something very interesting. I think we may see a historic imbalance in the primary turnout this time. In Missouri, typically the Democratic turnout has been higher. I think this time we're going to see a Republican turnout, you know, maybe almost double the Democrat primary, something we've never seen before. And I don't think that it's going to fall off. I think, unfortunately for Democrats, and I don't mean this in a partisan way, but I think that because of Trump, because of the year, I think, and because of the number of Republican sure campaigns, the money behind them, that you're going to see, like Ashcroft, you're going to see Eric Schmidt, some of those people win down ballots.
So it's amazing. You just said $3 or $4 million, and it's actually a real thing. When I first met you, you had your office in Cape with all the cool pictures on the wall. Can you imagine thinking that that was a number for a Secretary of State's race that was plausible?
No, and in fact, I'll give you another number. I think we're going to see over $35 million spent in Republican primaries this year. You can go back 8 years ago, and there was less than $3 million spent. And you can look at in 2006. I think we looked at all, it was an off election year, but there was less than $500,000 spent in primaries. So there's been a definite trend towards this massive spending, which has changed the dynamics. I mean, we've looked at our polling, and you've got, you know, Bruner's up a couple, then Greitens gets 1.9 million. You've got, you know, Hanaway's going down, and then she gets a couple of million. And so it just, you know, all this onslaught of money, it really changes the dynamics of how these races are going to end up. It's insane.
John Wayman, who wins that primary?
Probably Ashcroft. The name ID is just too hard to overcome, and Will is from the western part of the state, didn't raise enough money. I like Will as well, but it's just going to be too tough for him to overcome, I think.
You know, something I found interesting is the last couple of weeks, your colleague, Jeff Rowe, his firm Axiom, has ran Will's campaign, very close to them. People forget how tough his Senate primary was to get to the Senate. Gave him quite a bit of money, over $50,000 now. They've been kind to give to him. I think that's an interesting thing and an old friendship that you see Jeff talked about on Rush Limbaugh now, but he helped out Will. I think that's an interesting footnote on it.
If Jeff had $3 million, Jeff could probably win that race for Will. Absolutely.
Amazing
it's
numbers.
unfortunate, but when you run for a statewide office, and I've been involved in enough statewide races that I know how it works.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is just name ID. It's being known.
You're a
And
longtime Blunt guy, going back to the day.
I have known the
That
Blunt family
number's
for a while.
amazing. 3 or 4 minutes. That's just an amazing
In
number.
the primary last time, Spooner, who was unknown against Ashcroft, he started out at 4%. Ashcroft started out at 58 and ended up 54-35. And so the point is, and Ashcroft outspent him 2-1. So Ashcroft isn't that strong. But with Ashcroft named statewide and new money advantage or no money advantage, I just don't know.
Nobody's
how it
had better
comes around.
Facebook picture on the convention than
Well,
Jack
and
Spooner.
think about
Loved
this.
him.
Think about the I grew up in Rollin, Missouri. Carnahan.
Yep.
I mean, on the Democratic side, it's worked on the Democratic
Jump
side
to
as
it.
well.
He wins his primary, right? Carnahan does.
Oh, I think easily.
Lieutenant Governor said, who wins the Republican primary?
Well, that's a tougher question. I endorse Bev, but I don't know. I think it's a close race right now. I really don't know who's going to.
Bid Bodies, I know you're close to Mike Parson. Who wins?
I think Parson narrowly wins it. He's at a disadvantage. Bev's gotten a lot of support from Rex, but Mike has sort of slugged back with getting dollars and cents everywhere around the state. And I think ultimately we used to see fundraising was really a reflection of a candidate's strength because they would get it, 100 here, 100 there.
Sure.
The person that had $100,000 really were. I remember Bob Holden. Bob Holden was a classic example of a
So he
guy
won it.
who beat Jay Nixon in the primary because he went out and he raised it $1,000 a time, $1 million plus. And now I think Bev has very little support. I think Parsons wins.
Look across the aisle. Who wins that primary?
No, Lieutenant?
Yeah.
Oh, Carnahan.
Who wins on the Republican side?
I'm no authority on Republican politics. I couldn't profess to tell you.
You see both sides. Russ Carden looks like he's not only the favorite in the primary, but in the general too.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Carnahan name is well liked still in Missouri politics, and I think that gives him an advantage. And I think Parson is he's run a strong race. He has been in touch with every part of the state, and I think that's going to come out to help him in his favor.
Let's talk about a Democratic primary on the AG side. Teresa Hensley now is throwing shots now on here.
race.
She made it very clear that she has more prosecutorial spins than all 3 of the boys she's running against. Jake Zimmerman's got some ads though. The money advantage. Who wins?
Sure. That's one I won't profess to be able to know. I think it's going to be a squeaker, and I think Hensley probably wins it in a squeaker. But it's a very contested race. Both people are running very good campaigns.
You see them both. Who wins?
I think Hensley. I think, one, I like her aggressive nature that she's taken up, but 2, I think this is one of the better races that is being run statewide.
Who wins?
Wow, I thought you all would assume that Zimmer would be the hands-on favorite.
I would too.
Just because of his base, St. Louis, and everything else. I'll stick with Zimmer. I don't disagree with anything they're saying about Hensley. I just get a sense that from looking at pure votes, him being from St. Louis, him having a numerical advantage, that he should be able to get the votes out. But
Real quick, we're out of time. Give me a couple picks. Who wins that Democrat primary? You're around the state
For
for AG.
I have no idea. That's one race I haven't really paid much attention to, Scott.
I think we can all say Schmidt probably wins his primary for treasurer. I think he seems relatively safe. The last 2, the really interesting ones, the primary for AG. Who's ahead on the Republican side?
I think they go back and forth. That's another one of those races, like the lieutenant governor race. We have 2 good quality candidates, and they're both running very good campaigns. They have good campaign consultants working for them, so a lot of money being thrown at it. So it's going to come down to the last week or so who can get the most TV ads out, get the most robocalls out, and
We're running short on time, David Barclay. Just give me just the margin. I know you work for the Schaefer campaign. Give me the margin of victory.
Schaefer 4.
Let me prediction now. I know, even though you don't do Republican politics, this race has been too fun for you not to have some to be watching a little bit. Who wins?
I would actually like to see Schaefer win.
Is that right? Who wins this race?
I really, it's got to be. I think it's Schaefer. I think it's Schaefer. It's tough.
does
It's
it
a tough
come
race,
down
though. It's
to-
another squeaker.
They both, have ran aggressive, tough
Very aggressive
campaigns.
campaigns.
One's got prosecutorial spins, one doesn't. Is that?
Yeah.
I think when the voters are given that choice.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think the terrorism charge is pretty effective. I think that's what ends up helping Schaefer win.
All right, give me a prediction of the governor's race on the Republican side.
I think John Brunner ends up winning.
Really?
Give
Close?
a nod to our friend down the
Close?
aisle over there. Very close. Very close. I think everybody's within single digits, and I think it's probably within 7.
Who wins a close race?
I've always thought Graydon was going to pull it out.
Is that right?
And I still believe that.
I remember that. Give me the margin. What does Bruner win by?
Bruner by 2.
Bruner by 2.
I think it's going to be It's either Kinder or Bruner. Those are my
When
two.
we,
I think.
when we were doing
I'm
this
not
whole
going to narrow it
concept,
down to one.
I was
I'm not going to narrow it down to
I was
one.
most interested in yours, Kinder or Bruner, and it's really close.
I think it's very close between those two.
The general election, who do you think the Democrats are worried about the most?
Probably Greitens. They always claim they're worried about Greitens, but
Yeah.
that's what I
Interesting.
hear.
We've got it all on tape. We're gonna remember all this. If you're right, we probably won't hear much about it. But when you're wrong, we're gonna have a good time with it. We'll see you next week for our Republican gubernatorial debate, the final countdown, 40 some hours out. We'll see you then on This Week in Missouri Politics.